Hey guys, so if you just saw my favorite films of the 1970s, my top 10 favorite films of the 1970s, basically this video is basically going to be my top 10 favorite films of the 1980s. So now that we've done the 70s, let's go with the 1980s. So for this decade, guys, let's start at number 10, and like last time, we'll start at number 10, and we will go all the way till one. So the higher we go, or in this case, so the nine's going to be better than 10, eight's going to be better than nine. So the higher we go, um, the better the film is to me, like more significance there is to me. And like last time too, not only am I basing these based off of how I feel about these films, but kind of how that decade how that decade reflects to me. When I think about the 1980s in film, how that film really, kind of comes to mind right away when I think about 1980s in cinema. So that's also factoring into these choices that I put here on the list. So let's get going here. At number 10, we have Star Wars Episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. I know a lot of people prefer Empire Strikes Back over this one, but for some reason, Return of the Jedi, I really liked how it just kind of wrapped things up. It really, there's some really dark, deep moments in this one. Definitely, if you've seen the prequels, I know a lot of people aren't a big fan of them. I really think this one really ties into the prequels the best out of all the original trilogy ones. It just really brings everything together. Even if you don't like the prequels, I mean, it's just such a really enjoyable film. I liked Jabba's palace. I liked, what the Death Star looked like. I liked the battle between Luke and Darth Vader at the end of the movie. You really get the impression that Luke Skywalker is more experienced in this one as a Jedi, and just a really well done film, and it makes it in at number 10. At number 9, we have Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. When I think adventure, when I think action, when I think Harrison Ford, when I think George Lucas, or even when I think Steven Spielberg, this film definitely comes to mind. It's such a great adventure film. I actually kind of like Return of the Jedi over Empire Strikes Back. To me, Last Crusade was kind of the best Indiana Jones adventure for me. I like it better than Raiders of the Lost Ark, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that, but just the fact that they're after the Holy Grail, one of the biggest artifacts in history. I loved all the religious meanings behind the cave that they went into to retrieve the Holy Grail. I loved Sean Connery as Indiana Jones' sidekick in this. He played Professor Jones, Indiana Jones' dad. I loved kind of the twist they did with the love interest. It wasn't your typical love interest. There was definitely a twist with that character. Just a really enjoyable adventure film. And I think it's better than Raiders of the Lost Ark in almost every sense of the word, to tell you the truth. And it makes it at number 9. At number 8, this is definitely a personal favorite for me. The original Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984. Just a really well done horror film. Robert Englund really just nailed that Freddy Krueger role, and it definitely showed in the first film. And unlike the other, like the later Nightmare on Elm Streets, they had to hide Freddy in the dark a lot. We didn't see Robert Englund in the Freddy makeup a lot in this one. Basically, they had to hide him in the dark and only use the makeup they needed to. You're like, okay, well, he's standing in the light in this part of the face. We'll make sure we get that part of the face really well, but the rest of it will be in darkness. And there's other scenes too where you can definitely tell they just kind of use the loose paint on him rather than the suit like they do for the other Nightmare on Elm Streets. But it's one of those movies where it just kind of gets to you after a while. It just kind of really makes you think about the dream world and reality. What is a dream? What is reality? It's definitely a early year Inception kind of movie for those who've seen the movie Inception by Christopher Nolan. Um, it's just a really, really well done horror film, and it makes it at number 8. At number 7, we have A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. This is easily my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street film. I like it better than the original. Wes Craven's New Nightmare is pretty close for me, though, too. Um, with this one, we got to see a young Lawrence Fishburne, we got to see a young Patricia Arquette. It's just I liked how not only was it a great horror film, it was kind of a good dark action film in a sense too. Just some really impressive special effects in this one. Some really, I think some of the concepts they used for the dreams in this one felt a little bit more unique and fresh than they were in the first one. I really liked the group of kids that they used in this one. I mean, it was just a really interesting group of kids, how they all had different backgrounds and how they all interpret Freddy and kind of how Freddy creeps in out in a different sense for each of these kids. And I like how they're kind of all in the same place. The characters in this universe are aware that they kind of all these teens have to be in the same spot at this point simply because if they're all separate, it's going to be hard to track down Freddy. So it's easier to track Freddy down now that he knows where most of the teens are, but that also gives the teens an opportunity to fight back. Thus, the Dream Warriors in the title. They found a way to fight back and had to have shared dreams and just a really interesting movie, and I think it's easily the best Nightmare on Elm Street film in the franchise. I love the film a lot, and it makes it at number 7. Number 6 is really close to my heart because not only did I get to meet Molly Ringwald in real life in 2010, um, this film is just really close to my heart. It's just really, it just defines the 80s for me. When I think, this is another reason why I put it on the list, because, when I think of 1980s cinema, I definitely think of 16 Candles, the John Hughes film from 1984. Just a really well written story. It's just so it's funny when it needs to be, and Anthony Michael Hall and Molly Ringwald are all great in it. We got to see a young Joan Cusack, a young John Cusack. They're both in the film together. They're clearly not trying to be brother and sister in the movie though, like they are in real life. Just a really well done movie. It's just so well written. It's funny. It just everything about it works. It's just one of those kind of movies. So 16 Candles makes it at number 6. At number 5, we have Back to the Future, one of my all-time favorite Robert Zemeckis films, next to Forrest Gump, which I'll bring up in my 1990s top 10. But yeah, Back to the Future, guys. When I think of time travel in film, I have to think about Back to the Future. It's just such a great time travel movie. Christopher Lloyd. I can't think of any other actor on the planet that could have played Dr. Brown than him. He is that character. Christopher Lloyd took over the character. He's perfect in the role. Michael J. Fox is great as Marty McFly. Just a really interesting movie about kind of like, if we were to go back in time and meet our parents, what would it be like? And I kind of like how the film, really explores that idea and really does some interesting things that most people, who would make a film like this before Back to the Future probably wouldn't have made as creatively as Robert Zemeckis was able to do with it. At number 4, we have Rocky 3. I'm a huge fan of this movie. It's easily one of my favorite Rocky films. Though Rocky Balboa in 2006 is probably my favorite Rocky film, Rocky 3 is pretty high up there for me. It's definitely up there with the original and Rocky Balboa. Um, I loved Mr. T in this. He was great as Clubber Lang. Great music in here. This is Eye of the Tiger first premiered for Survivor. I'm a huge fan of that band. There's just so many great things going on. This we have, the introduction of Mr. T, the introduction of Survivor with the Eye of the Tiger song. They were big before it, but they became even bigger after Rocky 3. I liked how Carl Weathers' character became a good guy for this one. I liked how the film is about even when we're in our prime, we got to still have that sense of hunger. We got to have that sense of, still going after that thing we love the most. And I love how the Rocky character learns that, he can't just slack off when he's a champion. He has to really work just as hard as he did when he trying to become the champion. And it's just a really interesting and very valuable and inspirational message of, always stick with what you're good at. Always, if you're really good at something, if it's your job, if it's something you're passionate about, always keep doing it. Because if you lose track of it, I mean, if you don't use it, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I mean, this film really kind of explains the importance behind that. Always having a sense of hunger in what you do. And I just love Rocky 3. It makes it in at number 4. Number 3, The Karate Kid. Now, this film has a lot of meaning to me. I once took karate lessons at a place called Karate America when I was young. Wax on, wax off. The scenes with Pat Morita as Mr. Miyagi, they're almost therapeutic. I mean, there's just the man is so fun to watch in the role. I mean, Jackie Chan did a great job as Mr. Han in the remake, but um, Pat Morita, kind of like with Christopher Lloyd and as Dr. Brown in Back to the Future. I mean, no other man on the planet could have played Mr. Miyagi like Pat Morita did. Um, just a really well written film, very therapeutic. Like I said, it just really relaxes you in some scenes, and it gets intense when it needs to be. It's just a really good story, and I really appreciate John G. Alvison, who directed the original Rocky, another big favorite of mine. He really just gave me a great story, and this is another film too where I think about the 1980s whenever I think about it. It's just a really excellent film, and it makes it at number 3. And at number 2, this is an even bigger film for me. So if The Karate Kid didn't get you, this one will for sure. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I can't think about science fiction without thinking about E.T. It's just one of those kind of movies. It's one of Steven Spielberg's biggest films next to Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Definitely put him on the map even more so after doing Jaws and Close Encounters, so he was already pretty big at this point. Um, my parents were, I think they either were married or were getting married around the time this movie came out. So it's a pretty big deal for them too. So a lot of people who are close to me love this movie as well. So that's another reason why I think I love it so much. And it just really goes to show that you can make a good sci-fi film and you don't have to make the alien violent. Because before ET, a lot of aliens in movies were always violent. They're always trying to kill people. And I like how Steven Spielberg took the opposite approach and be like, well, what if aliens are intrigued by us? What if they want to, become our friend? They want to learn about us. They, want to study us like we want to study them. And, that we're a new breed of animal to them, just like how they're a new breed of animal to us. So it's just a very beautiful, beautiful movie. And, it makes it at number two. It just has a lot of heart and meaning to me. And if I ever meet Steven Spielberg, I got to give him a hug for this movie alone, just because this movie touched me in so many ways, and it's just so close to my heart. Number one, and this film easily is number one. This movie almost defines me in a way. It almost, I think I wanted to make this video simply because of this movie. So here's a little hint at what made it to number one. Science. So I know a lot of you are shocked. You're probably, whoa, you put that, better than E.T. and Karate Kid and Rocky 3. Well, yeah, this movie just, okay, weird science. It's directed by John Hughes. He's one of my all-time favorite directors. It stars Robert Downey Jr., one of my all-time favorite actors. It has Anthony Michael Hall in it, another favorite actor of mine. It's the start of Danny Elfman, who later composed several favorite films of mine. He was a part of Oingo Boingo at the time, and they did the score for this movie. There's just so many things about this movie that I absolutely love. The people involved with it, the storyline. I love the concept. This movie has a perfect concept. It's easily one of John Hughes' best films he's ever done. Yes, that's even better than Ferris Bueller's Day Off and a bunch of other really good ones he's done. It has so much more meaning to me. It's just, I think about the 80s every time I watch it. It's just one of those movies where if I could go back in time and just see, people's first reaction to this movie, I would have loved to have seen that. I would have loved to have lived in this movie. There's just so many great things about the movie that makes you want to live in that fantasy world like these guys are in, make you do, whatever you want to do, like what Lisa has the ability to do. It's just it defines the 80s for me. It really does. So that's my top 10 favorite of the 80s, you guys. And stay tuned for my top 10 of the 1990s, the big year for me because I was actually around at that time.